you might think that I'm about to talk about Groovy John and Groovy Joan as they, products of the 70s, slide into retirement. Now, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, you are wrong. Because the golden years have come to Pork Chop. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Pork Chop, our 16-year-old Jack Russell Terrier. By all human dog equivalency charts, Pork Chop is now 87 years old. That's right. His best friend lives next door. We'll talk about him later, Lucky. Lucky is 10 years old. His equivalent age is 67. They're both senior citizens. Yes. Now, Pork Chop has cataracts on both eyes. He only sees shadows, light and dark. At nighttime, he bounces into walls. He doesn't hear very well. At least he doesn't respond to us, whether he hears us or not. And in fact, he has some soft tissue lumps on his belly and on one leg that don't make him look like a very young and spry animal. However, he has had a remarkable heritage. Yes, indeed, Pork Chop was a canine highlight reel. I can tell you the things that have happened to him largely by describing some of the things in our family. Frank, Joan's brother, Mary's brother, older brother, he's an ex-Marine. He was 3 times in Vietnam. Frank, the first time he meets Pork Chop, he comes into the house. He closes the door behind him. Pork Chop is 6 feet in front of him. He comes in and he says, "Roar!" Raise your hand if you think that was the right thing to tell Pork Chop. You would be wrong again. Pork Chop, from 6 feet away, took one bounding leap and grabbed onto Frank's pants and his thigh and damn near ripped off his pants. It was great.
Oh my God!
I was so proud of him.
Oh my God!
I had to buy an extra pair of pants for Frank. Frankly, when I saw the expression on his face go from "roar" to "oh," I had to buy him 3 pair of pants. It was just that good. A couple of times later, Mary Frances came over to the house. When she came over, now we have a house with a big door and then an enclosure outside, which is a screened enclosure. She came bouncing in her jubilant way, opened the door, came in, and we said, "Mary, the door!" She didn't know what I was talking about. "It's the dog! Don't let the dog out!" Mary turns around. The dog goes whistling out the door and out into the neighborhood. Well, Mary, being the great person and the very, very cooperative person that she always is, she came in and she said, "Don't worry, I'll go and get him." Jeff looked at me, I looked at Joan, and in unison, we all said, "Sure, Mary." What she didn't know is that a track star could not get Pork Chop. He whistled out the door, across the yard, into the next neighborhood, then he stopped, and he looked back. Mary comes out of the door, she's paddling out after him, and she got to within about 50 feet of him, and off he went to another yard. And Mary goes paddling after him there, and he turns around, does a 90-degree turn, and goes in the other direction. And Mary turns around and tries to catch him again. Finally, we turned around and went back into the house. About 5 minutes later, Mary's... We said, "Mary, you've been punished enough. You can come in now. Pork Chop will not be back for 3 hours. You do not understand. The chase is what he loves. And if you chase him, you will never, ever catch him. He's a star. And that's what stars do." Well, that was pretty good. Then the last highlight film comes from the trailer park episodes. Pork Chop, our neighborhood, borders on a trailer park. And this trailer park was grandfathered in. All of our houses were built afterwards. It's still there today. One of the things the lease says on it for every resident in the trailer park is no dogs allowed. So what does everybody in the trailer park own? Cats. It's a mecca for pork chop. He goes over there. He spends hours chasing after cats. He loves it. It's like going to Disney World for him. He had such a great time over there. He could not believe it. Eventually, he'd come home a little scarred, a little beaten up. The trailer park people, though, they put a bounty on him because he was very mean to those kitties. He was terrible. Anyway, he survived. He continued to do well, but now he's 87 years old. So what does he do? He goes to the next door neighbor. There's a fence between our house and the house owned by Jesus Garcia, the parents of Lucky, the 67-year-old dog. If you go out there, very quietly and don't let them know, they sit by the fence 2-3 times a week and they start telling dog jokes to each other. Hey, pork chop, how you doing, young fella? That's Lucky. He always calls him young fella. He says, I got a good one for you. All right, tell me the good one. He says, why do blind people never go skydiving? Pork chop says, I don't know, Luck. What's the answer? He says, because it scares the dog. Yeah, pretty good, Lucky. Pretty good. Oh yeah. And he says, and Lucky, pork chop says, wait a minute, I got one for you. What's the joke? I got one for you. How come dogs can't dance? Lucky says, you think about that. Why can't dogs dance? Yeah, I don't know. Pork chop says, because they got 2 left feet. They think this is really funny. They're having a blast. I want you to know this is great. So, that's it. That's it. They're having so much fun. And then Pork Chop says, I gotta go to the vet tomorrow. You gotta go to the vet? Yeah, gotta go to the vet. Pork and Lucky says, well, I don't know. Better be careful. If Joan leaves you at the vet, bad things happen to old dogs. Don't let Joan out of your sight. So, he never does. And that's how he's sliding into the golden years. Pork Chop, the human highlight film in his golden years, and he's never going to let Joan leave him at the vet. That'll take us.